Welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from the title and the video intro, this is the gun that we are going over today. So this is the Century Arms imported AP5-P. So what it is an MP5-K clone. There's no getting around it. You can't hide it. That is what it is. Now, we've previously reviewed this guy here, which is their full-size AP5, which is a clone of the MP5. This one now has been turned into a machine gun, and this one will be eventually as well. If you guys are interested in seeing how to do that, definitely follow me on Telegram, subscribe on Rumble. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to put that video on YouTube. I'll try. We'll see, but I can't guarantee it. Again, it'll definitely be on Telegram and Rumble as well. Anyway, so it will be converted, but for right now, it is actually a pistol under US law. So this here that we have on there is a JMAC custom side folding brace adapter, and we've also used the SB Tactical side folding brace adapter. They also make stock adapters and all kinds of things. There's one thing that's nice about being an MP5, in this case MP5K clone, is that there are parts and accessories everywhere for it, so that is nice. But we have essentially a shortened down version of the MP5, and with that, it definitely changes some of the things, some of the parts on it, some of the considerations, and some of the performance. So we will talk about that for sure today. We're going to take it apart, show you guys the innards and all of those sorts of things, how it works. But before we do that, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Armslist. So I have been using Armslist since literally before the channel existed. It's an online website where you can buy, sell, trade any of the things that you see here, and in many states you can do so and avoid a 4473, which certainly is a nice bonus and a freedom that Americans do enjoy. So definitely check out Armslist if you're interested in any of that. Now let's continue on with the pistol. We're going to go from the front all the way to the rear and walk through it piece by piece. On there right now we have an OSS can, and it is, I believe, their 9mm short configuration, and it does have a fixed barrel spacer, which is nice, but the barrel itself is cold hammer forged chrome lined. It is tri-lug capable, as you guys can see right here, for your tri-lug adapters, but then is threaded 1/2 by 28, which is nice. A lot of the old European stuff was not threaded 1/2 by 28, not American friendly, but this one is, so you can put any of your standard 9mm cans that you might have on there. Additionally, if you have something that has a tri-lug, you can run that as well. One thing I will point out though is that it does come with a thread protector. I highly recommend taking that off if you're going to run it with a tri-lug. You do not want that thread protector getting inside your silencer. Very bad things will happen. So just kind of a note on that. Additionally, it does come with a tri-lug flash hider, which is fantastic. It's a fantastic flash hider. It's awesome. I really don't know that you could improve on it very, very much, but if you wanted to, you could try. But of course, that tri-lug configuration gives you the ability to quickly add your silencer just like that, which is certainly nice. Now, one thing I will say about tri-lugs, we've talked about it in the past, your actual point of impact will shift depending on which lug you put on top, or really any position as well. So I always mark mine to do it consistently the same way every time if you're going to do that, but it is a nice feature that it does have. You should also note that the barrel itself is fluted. So fluting does a couple things. It leaves cool marks in your brass, so there's that, but also it allows for easier extraction of the cartridge. With that, something that a lot of you guys have probably seen on other YouTube channels, you can actually remove the extractor on this, and we're going to get into that in detail later on in the video, but you can remove it, and oftentimes, depending on the ammo and the silencer, it will still run somewhat well. It won't run perfectly. There's a reason they have an extractor on there, but a lot of times it will still function, so it's kind of a cool little note there. Additionally, on the left side of the pistol, we do have our sling adapter there. It's that little piece there, super old school technology. And then the original handguard that comes with it does have this finger stop, which I highly recommend. Obviously, there's a lot of aftermarket accessories out there for this pistol, but if you are going to run anything out there, I recommend having that finger stop. It prevents you from getting your finger in front of the trigger should you get excited, or a new shooter, or whatever the case may be. It's something that unfortunately can happen with any type of firearm that does have a short handguard interface like this. Now, we've replaced it with the mag pull here, and again, there's a lot of different options out there for it. All of them are going to offer you some sort of light setup issue, right? So I say that because it's very short, so how do you get where you can actually grip it, but still run the charging handle and still have a light if you want to? Well, I don't know. This is kind of the best I've come up with at this point. Basically, it's a Magpul M-Lock one there. And then I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up at all, but I actually had to Dremel down the portion to get around the sling mount. Now, of course, if you remove your sling mount, like completely just Dremel it off, then the world is your oyster and you can run a ton of different options on there. Or of course, if you're left-handed, the same would be true. It's really the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want with it. Run just an extended like air socket mount or something like that. It would work great. But having that sling attachment on there does kind of give you some trouble. But this one is doable. If you kind of mag weld grip it, you can see there it's still relatively comfortable and it still has enough room for me to grab the bolt or the charging handle, although admittedly it's not optimal for that. Moving upward on the gun, we do have the HK hooded front sight. It is all steel, fully hooded, pinned into place. It's fantastic in terms of actual durability. Now, one thing that you will see some countries around the world do when they get these in, they actually just chop that off. And the reason for that is this guy here. So this pistol does come with this optics mount from the factory. It also comes with 2 magazines, a sling, a really nice cleaning kit, and a padded range case. So that's definitely a lot you get with it, and I do dig that. But when you're running these optics mounts, one thing that kind of gets in the way is that front top of the hood there is right in line with where your dot is. Now, I'm so used to it at this point, I literally don't see it unless I'm looking at it. But some folks, newer folks, can get distracted by that because with this type of mount here, obviously there are other lower ones out there that are available, but with this type of mount, it actually raises your optic up so you lose your co-witness with your rear sight. So you're dependent on that dot. A lot of folks are trying to find their rear sight. I've seen it a billion times, trust me, it can happen, but just know that is something that you might see out there if you're searching the web, is that thing being cut off. Of course, you lose the durability there that it does give you. Pros and cons. When I was just talking about the optics mount, one thing I neglected to say was that it is standard MP5. There's nothing special K about it or anything like that. Any of your MP5 claw mounts will work on this. And obviously, if you wanted to run a low power variable optic or something like that, you certainly could do so. It'd be a little weird looking, but the world is your oyster. It's a 1913 interface. Now, continuing to the rear, this is something that's different with most of your MP5s out there. So this has the notch style of rear sight versus what you would expect on your standard MP5s, having that diopter there on the rear. Now, MP5s, whether they be the K or the actual standard MP5, at least in my opinion, have some of the best sights out there on the market. They're phenomenal. And when you combine with the accuracy of the MP5 system for a pistol, or what we would call a pistol caliber carbine nowadays in America is the end term, they're as accurate as anything out there, which is crazy considering that this technology is over 50 years old, but it's a good design. It still works. But the diopter sight, of course, you can adjust the adapter to the size that you want it at, and then of course it is adjustable for elevation, or excuse me, for your windage there. So to adjust it's very, very simple. It's just a screw, and you slide it over, you loosen the top screw, then you turn it with this one, it moves it back and forth. And as you guys can see, this one here a little bit had to be moved a little bit rather. So we got it over there to the left from the shooter's perspective, probably about 3/4 of the way to get it zeroed with Minuteman munitions, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly in spec. There's nothing out of the ordinary with that. Looking down here at the lower, we'll get into this in greater detail when we take it apart. It does have the actual pin up front, and I don't think I actually mentioned it. This is made at MKE in Turkey on actual HK factory machinery. So years ago, decades ago, Turkey wanted to make MP5 and MP5 versions, and they got a contract with the German government to actually bring essentially an HK manufacturing facility into Turkey. So that's what these are made on. Very, very high quality, and that's why they're so close to the originals, because again, they're made on the same equipment that made the originals with the same tooling, etc. But the lower here is of course all polymer. It's an older design, so what you'll see with the newer designs is more of a straight down grip. This is the older design, and it still has the pin up front. So if you're an HK aficionado, you'll know why I'm mentioning that. A lot of lower receivers have what's called a clipped-in pin lower on there, so that way they actually eliminate the lower here, which makes it a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible, but a little bit more difficult to convert it into full auto. And I don't know what the difference is. It seems like whatever the ATF said at the particular time where they were importing it, but MKE has never had to do that to my knowledge. And again, it comes with 2 standard capacity magazines that do have chrome lined followers, just like the originals as well. Of course, we'll make sure that we are clear, and we are now with the brace and stock adapter. This, obviously, like I said, is the JMac. Basically, what you're getting here is a 1913 interface like you'd have with like a SIG MPX, and then at that point, you just push up on it, and you can fold it. We'll show you the SB Tactical when we get a little bit closer, up close and personal rather, on the actual pistol, but that is how it works. It's a great setup. The SB Tactical is a great setup too. In my opinion, it kind of just depends on the aesthetics that you like and your budget, but there are a lot of options out there. Now, one piece that is different on this, the MP5Ks versus a standard MP5, again, our demo model here, is that we have 1 pin back here at the rear, right here. On an MP5K or clone, you're gonna have 2 pins back there. So that's a differentiator. If you're looking for a stock or brace setup, you can't just buy the MP5 version and put it on here, or vice versa. Before we take the gun apart and actually show you guys the internals of it there, I do want to talk about the trigger on this gun. So obviously our selector switch there is on safe, it's 0, and then 1 is fire. And the trigger has a lot of hiccup there where there's absolutely nothing. And you start pulling, and you keep pulling, and you just keep pulling, and there's basically no brake. There's a little bit of a brake, but it sucks. Then the reset, decent. It's actually not bad. But the trigger brake on this thing is not good. One thing I should add though is, despite that, all of my MP5 and MP5 variants shoot lights out in terms of accuracy. So the trigger definitely could be better, but the things are still shooters for sure. Now let's get this thing broken apart. At this point, we are going to open this girl up. Of course, we've already checked that it is clear. What we're gonna do is take our 2 pins off here at the rear. On this particular gun, they are quite tight. So obviously that will loosen, or they will loosen rather, as the round count and cleaning continues on the gun. So they are not captive there, just like any other MP5 clone out there. And one thing I will point out while we have the camera here is that whatever you go with in terms of a brace, stock adapter, etc., what you want to do is you want to make sure we have the correct buffer here. So these buffers, different in color, but they're made to the same specs, and they're made to HK factory specs, or in this case, AP5 specs, AP5K specs. You need that because if not, your bolt will have excessive wear without it. So just a note on that. Additionally, at this point, like I said, we do have a front pin on this particular model. We're going to take that out and take our lower assembly out. This is, of course, where our trigger is. The selector on there is MP5 standard, MP5, nothing fancy there. But you'll note there that you do have a little bit of a difference here at the rear versus your standard MP5. So the K version is different, kids. However, the actual trigger and trigger pack that goes in there is the exact same as is the selector lever. You guys may have noticed on my other MP5 variants, I've changed the selectors out to a Magpul version. I think it's absolutely superior in ergonomics. Most folks do not have hands that are large enough to do what I'm doing right now, and they have to shift their hands to come up. I do have very large hands, but most folks will not be able to naturally, without adjusting their grip, be able to actuate that selector lever. Everything in there looks normal, and I should note there that our trigger pack here, if you're looking for an upgrade to full auto, it will drop right on in there, which obviously is not the case with all of the MP5 and MP5K clones. At this point, we're going to pull our bolt back here and lock it open. I guess you don't have to. You can just leave it flapping if you want to. At this point, we're going to take our bolt assembly out. So our recoil spring there is stuck in the bolt itself, and at this point you can press in on your rollers and twist, and you will see that the bolt comes out. Now, one thing of note here is, since this is a roller delayed design, our operating weight here and the mass in the bolt and carrier are much lower than what you'd see with something like a direct blowback system. The actual delay in the operation of the gun, combined with the lower mass here, is what makes it such a pleasant gun to shoot. From a shooter's perspective, the recoil is virtually nothing. Super, super pleasant, just like the MP5. Of course, the K is touch more, but again, we're talking not much at all. I should note that this piece right here is not factory. Something that HK MP5K folks probably know is that you can actually sort of tune your locking system on the K. So we can do it on all of them, but particularly on the K and the SD models, it's very important. It comes with 100 degree, and you can see on there, this one here says 80 degrees. So the actual change in the angle will slightly delay it a little bit more. Why would you want to do that? Well, on this short system here, the action, like I said, is going a little bit faster, and especially if it's suppressed or you're using 147 grain ammo, the action will run faster than it should. So a lot of people, including in the HK manual, it does mention this, swap these out to run the 80 degree to give you a little bit more delay. And I should note that even with this in there, but not suppressed, the gun still runs just fine in my experience. And looking inside the upper receiver there, one thing that you will note is that in order to be imported and get ATF blessing, the ATF had to put this Sear Block in there. It's welded in there, and what this does is it prevents a full auto carrier from going in. This is a semi-auto carrier. Again, we will have a conversion video up, but this here prevents the full auto carrier from going in there, and that's something that, again, Century has to do before importing the gun to be legal. Reassembly, of course, is the exact same thing, just in the opposite order. Of course, there's our firing pin. The one thing I should note there is take note of this actual spring. We will get back to that here, but that is your extractor spring. This one actually is copper. It's just dirty right now, and it looks gray. Another thing that folks who are into HKs and durability and all that sort of thing are into, a lot of folks will run the 10mm spring, which is exactly what this one looks like right now. I assure you this is copper, but the 10mm spring looks gray, and it just gives you a little bit more durability. Do you need it? Probably not. Is it a nice to have? Probably. Reassembly on these is pretty straightforward. You want to push your roller pins in, and then you're just going to rotate it 90 degrees, and it will go right back in. But pushing them in is kind of a little weird until you get used to it, but that is it. And basically from this point on, you're just going to reassemble it just the opposite of how you assembled it. You should note the pins are not directional. Now that we have reassembled it with the SB tactical brace, I want to kind of show you guys how that works. So it has a button here on the left side where you can press it in and hold it down. Neither of the braces that we've used are kind of locked in. They use like a tension thing to hold it down, but a little bit of pressure will overcome it. Snaps into place. I should also note they do have a QD sling swivel adapter built into it. Now what comes with it from the factory? It comes with basically an end cap and a sling adapter. So it's functional. You can use it like that, and a lot of folks, you know, even military units actually use them like that in the real world for a while. But adding some sort of stabilization device is absolutely the way to go, in my opinion. Can't do better than that. We certainly need a brace or a stock. A few things to go over before we close the video out. Number one, the pistol was sent out to me for review by Century, as was both braces, just FYI. But performance-wise, reliability, let's talk about that. So about 600 rounds into it, using mostly Minuteman munitions with a little bit of Red Army Standard thrown in there as well. At that point, probably like 400 rounds of Minuteman, 200 rounds of Red Army Standard, almost exclusively suppressed. So that does play into it as well. We started to have some extraction issues. We talked about extraction earlier without the extractor, and we started to have some extraction issues. Basically, the rounds just simply weren't coming out and going back into the action, which, as you can imagine, is not good for the action. It would cause failures. Malfunction. Failure. Oh, nope. That was a... Didn't spit the case out. Another one tried to go in. First failure. Malfunction. Failure to extract, which caused what would have been a failure to feed, but we caught it. There's the failure to feed. What the fuck? Ah, interesting malfunction. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but we have a round stuck right there in the mag well. That little spot behind where it feeds, that was preventing the bolt from going home. They might be right. That's gnarly. Looks like just a failure to extract, but it is locked up. Yeah, failure to extract. Keep going. See what happens. Kind of looking into it, just doing a little research online, seeing what could cause that, because everything seemed normal. Basically what I thought, just troubleshooting it, going through it, the only thing I think is that that extractor spring had to be bad. I just was thinking that can't be the case because it has such a low round count. Regardless, I reached out to Century's customer service and told them what was going on. They sent 3 of them out, brand new ones. Again, they are copper, I promise. It just looks like it's not. I replaced it, which is very simple to do. It's a very easy process. And ever since then, it's been running reliably. So it just probably had kind of like a faulty one from the factory. That's my guess anyway, that went quickly, because we have, at this point right now, about 2,000 rounds through it. So we did have malfunctions again when that extractor spring was in there, but once we took it out, we've had no failures of any kind since, suppressed, unsuppressed, etc. So reliability has been good in that regard. Price point on these, it's going to depend when you buy or bought it, but as of right now, when I'm recording this video, they're coming in somewhere in the $1,700 to $1,900 range. However, when these first came out, which is probably like 2 years ago at this point, they were going for around $3,000 to $3,500. So definitely they have come down in price, which certainly is nice. I believe that's because they're coming in volume. There seems to be a lot of these coming into the country now, which is a good thing for the American consumer. And at this point, this is the most affordable of all the MP5K clones out there by far. So there are, other options, US made options, the German option, of course, which right now, good luck finding an MP5K clone, or which would be an SP5K. You're going to be looking at least $6,000, if not more. So while $1,600 to $1,900 is not inexpensive, paying for the HK name on it, it gets really, really, really expensive in terms of orders of magnitude. So what do I think of it overall? Well, number one of the advantages you get in the K configuration, obviously, is that it's just so much shorter. And this particular one being the AP5P rather than the AP5M, you actually have the ability to add muzzle devices, which I think is very nice. And for the added length of an inch or so, I would do that all day long over the M. Now, will I get an M? Probably. But me personally, I prefer the ability to add that muzzle device, particularly since this kind of is a suppressor host dream, if you will, right? That roller blade action really is smooth. Additionally, the barrel on this one is about 5.5 inches versus you're looking at over 8 inches on the standard one. So pretty much every type of 147 grain ammo you put through it is going to remain subsonic, whereas with the 8-inch barrel, that's not always the case depending on the ammo and where you live. Additionally, obviously, it is shorter in the rear. If you want to use this as a sling mounted gun, you can definitely mount it under a jacket or something like that and use it for that type of concealability. It's absolutely doable. Like I said, lots of military units did that over the years. Definitely give up something in terms of accessory mounting for sure. Even on the MP5, the handguard is relatively small and accessory mounting is relatively difficult versus something like an AR-15. The AP5P takes it to another level in terms of difficulty in accessorizing. So just know that going forward. But overall, I think right now on the market, these MKE made guns imported by Century are probably the best value option on the market. There's definitely other good options for sure, without question. But in terms of bang for your buck, right now, I don't think they can be beat. Like I said, this one's coming in, towards the $2,000 mark, but compared to any of the competitive offerings out there, it's less expensive. It's made on factory HK tooling. It's made to HK specs. And honestly, it's just a very, very high quality firearm. Obviously, we had the hiccup that we have, but that happens, right? So it just kind of is what it is, and their customer service fixed it. I had new springs in 2 days after I requested it, so I'm not mad about that at all. If you have any questions about the pistols, or if you have experience with one of your own, let us know about it down below in the comment section. You can also post those comments at my various social media sites here on your screen. If you're not following me there, recommend you do. Additionally, if you like this type of video and you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We do in-depth product reviews all the time. It's kind of what we do. And if you've hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you can go ahead and sign up for my email at the website on your screen here. This email goes out once a month, and it has all of the videos since the previous email went out, so that way there's no big tech giant censoring your eyes from my content, because that is the reality of 2022 America. Additionally, if this thing goes on sale, anything like that, we can always shoot it out in our daily deals email, which has 6 or 7 of the best deals around the internet that I find on guns, gear, accessories, ammo. It will be in that email, and if it's in the email that you can sign up for at the website here on your screen, it is the best price on that particular product on that particular day anywhere on the internet that I am aware of. And with that, guys, we will close the video out. Thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.